It's time to roll out in this Roll for Crit review as we take a look at the Transformers trading card game from Hasbro and Wizards that just came out earlier this year. In this game, you'll be playing multiple different Transformers from the Transformers universe, and you'll try to win by knocking out all your opponents' fellow robots.
Essentially, on your turn, it's very simple. You're going to start with a hand of 3 cards from your pre-built deck, and then you're going to get to first draw one on your turn, and then you have 3 options that you can take out. You can play 2 different types of cards from your hand, either an upgrade that you actually attach to one of your Transformers to give them more power, more defense, various different options, or you can play an action card which have multiple effects. They might let you draw cards, etc. Or you can actually flip one of your Transformers over and they will transform into a different mode. For instance, Bumblebee here, of course, has robot mode and car mode, but it could vary exactly what type that is, depending on what they are, Dinobot, what have you. Then you choose one of your Transformers to attack one of your opponent's Transformers, tapping them, as the case may be.
Yes, because this is by Hasbro and Wizards, they can use the word tap.
That's right. We're not going to get sued for saying that right now. And you look at their stats. In the corner has a strength versus a defense, and each player draws the top 2 cards of their deck by default. That could vary depending on your upgrades and such. Now, in the corner of each card is a different color. Explain to the people what those colors mean.
All right, so you have pretty much pips, and they come in 3 colors: orange, white, and blue. Orange adds to your attack, while blue will add to your defense. If you show a white pip, however, for the first time, regardless of how many white shows, you get to flip over 2 extra cards, which could help you or make no difference depending on what other colors show up.
And then you compare the 2 numbers, totals, and the difference is the amount of damage that you do, which the game comes with damage counters. You could keep track of it with a die, however, whatever you find easier. And then those cards go away to the discard pile. Now, that's basically what happens until you wipe out one of the other player's robots. You keep going turn by turn. Transformers, of course, are a beloved property of yours, and I know one of the things you often lament about is the fact that there really hasn't been a good Transformers game in the board game world. So, do you think this approaches that threshold?
It definitely approaches. First of all, these cards are really cool. You said, I mean, obviously, you're going to be drawing this game for the big cards. And the ones we have set up are actually the 2 decks I made. I have this sort of car one, which, by the way, Autobots and Decepticons, you can mix them as however you please. So whatever your team you want to build. Other one being a Dinobot, not as good. I don't have Grimlock. I don't have that also in my T-Rex. But you have plenty of other cards in, like I have some pulled aside. I do have, there's the Insecticons. I don't really have the cards to support them, but I'm sure someone out there could tell me how I'm wrong and have the perfect setup. And of course, these are some common versions of, you got to have Megatron and Optimus, you know.
Yeah, they got to be in the mix there somewhere.
And what I do like also is that in the starter set, they do sort of have, obviously, Autobots have cars, trucks, and Dinobots. Decepticons really have the tanks, the planes, and the Insecticons. And some cards, like I built in the set, but like this one, for example, I want to be able to build his Demolisher, has some really great tank synergy. So it's really fun to be able to build around that. But they obviously, like some of these cards, I don't think I have the ones out right now. Actually, Flame War maybe would be a good example. You had no idea who that was.
Yeah, there's some obscure bots in there.
They're willing to go out there to pull them. And obviously, especially I know for you, because I know you're a much bigger fan compared to me. I like my cars in old school. But you're a big Beast Wars fan. And if they go into that territory, I'm sure that's going to draw you.
Yeah, that's my jam for sure. That's really the only part of Transformers that I ever really developed a fandom for, outside of just, thinking they're cool.
Yeah, and I would love that too. I want to see some more integration. And this is where sort of I would like to see maybe a little bit better. But some of the equipment, like this can only go on Optimus Prime. This can technically go on anyone but a bonus for Megatron. And of course, we have the Matrix of Leadership. But if there were something, because you can mix other things, I'm fine with some mixing because you want some variety. But it would be cool if there was something like the Insecticon's actually a good example. This guy has a card which he flips over 2 more cards for every Insecticon you begin the game with. What if there was a card that had for every purple symbol? Like, so you could be something strictly Decepticons or Predacons.
Yeah, I do think more theming like that would be pretty cool and make for some fun games.
You do want to be careful because, like, the Ionic Blaster is sort of pointless. You feel pointless if you're not using Optimus, so you do want to be a little bit, but it would be nice something that's team. I like the team when it goes for the whole team. But the packs come with 7 of the regular trading size cards, which are like a certain number of commons, an uncommon, and a rare. You're guaranteed that, which is nice. You only get 1 of these big cards, and you're not guaranteed a common or uncommon. So a box, from what I've told, I bought a box that's behind me. I have box and starter set, and the special pack, which I'll also get to a little later. 2, I think there's been in some cases 3 rares per box. So after buying a box, obviously, especially, I definitely suggest buying a box because starting your collection, you probably can fill out most of the things you need. Mm-hmm. But for these teams, like I'm 1 tank away from having a good tank set. I'm 1 plane away. And it just feels really annoying because it's much harder to build. And there's the single market, I mean, there really isn't one. It's just starting. So hopefully that will build up and also at reasonable prices. If I need Grimlock, for example, and if his price stays at a really high price point, it sort of stinks.
Yeah, I mean, it's like any trading card game, but I guess it's a little worse in this one because of those big cards.
I mean, it would be a little bit better if it came with 2 per pack. I mean, I know that maybe like Dice Masters somehow.
Maybe they'll, as time goes on, adjust based on the market reaction and how people buy or trade. Right. Maybe they'll change that up.
I mean, like I said, this is also, I think it's fair to, there's some slack because it's the first game. The final thing I want them to be very careful about, they did this as a promo to get people excited, but Cliffjumper here, as well as this fun little thing, came with a little promo pack. It came with 2 guys that are only in the promo pack and 2 cards. One of them is very strong. It's in this deck. Which allows you to attack with everyone at once. I'm never a fan of having mechanics in a very limited supply, especially in a card game. Because if, for example, someone's a fan of Cliffjumper, he's a not as well-known guy, that sort of sucks.
Yeah, that sucks, yeah.
But what I think Hasbro can take advantage of is alternate arts. What if there's an alternate version Grimlock, maybe, I don't know, a still from the show, which would be fantastically hilarious, that comes in one of the action figures. I know some of the action figures now just gasped that I suggested that because that makes them harder to find. And I'm sure also people would be angry like, oh, well, you're still paying $30 for, a card.
Right.
But you are getting a figure, which some of the recent figures have been cool. And once again, it's just, you don't have to. You can still get the packs, but there's at least a guaranteed way, or at least a way to maybe pump more of the rare cards into the marketplace. I'm strictly saying that these have to be just alternate arts, not a unique version of the card.
I mean, let's face it, the Transformers as a property is about collecting toys. They based a trading card game on a line of toys that are collectible.
I guess you could say based on a comic book that was based on a show that was based on a toy line.
But if you're not prepared for that level of collecting and paying money for things, I mean, that's what it is, the trading card game.
Yes, but there's I think a reasonable way to do it, as I said, with alternate art.
There is.
Versus being like...
But I think yours is reasonable.
Yes.
Yeah. I want to step back for a minute because we talked a lot about the distribution models and things like that. I want to go back to purely the gameplay itself. And the things that I like about it, having the fact that you have these main characters up always and they're your guys, that to me reminded me more of a game like Star Wars Destiny kind of works like this, or even like Pokemon trading card game, where or not as much about Pokemon, but kind of like Pokemon, where you have your main people always out on the field, and I love the fact that they have different modes on each side, and I feel like that's such a great.
No, they definitely, I think, captured the transform of Transformers.
It's a great implementation of that theme, exactly. It feels important and significant that you transform from one mode to another. And of course, when you're a car, I mean, I don't know that it necessarily translates that, oh, when I'm a car, I can pierce better. But the idea of it is there.
There is, I think, supposedly vehicle mode supposed to be defensively stronger, while bot mode's supposed to be offensively. I haven't noticed that too much with the cards I've used.
Yeah, I like that. I think for the most part, the baseline of the game is definitely very traditional. If you've played a CCG, Magic, or honestly any CCG in the last 20 years, you're going to feel right at home. The things that I think make it really cool are the flipping mechanic that I love, and also, honestly, the combat mechanic. Even though there's randomness, I feel like it kind of simulates a die roll in a way. I think it's interesting the way that you cycle through your deck often really quickly because you're using these so often for your defense and combat, and you're not just thinking about what do I want for its actual text.
Well,
what do I want to save so as I draw it?
Yeah, in particular, the decks you use, because I have a lot of cards that make them flip out a lot more cards. So, like, you do cycle very quickly with the decks I've made.
That is one thing I'll also say about this. I think it's great. Like you said, it's quick. It can play very quickly. At the same time, it can sometimes feel kind of swingy when it's like they're like, at least with these decks you've made, turn one you could potentially just wipe out a guy's robot, which is not bad because
we should also mention that is a meta thing. Like, new sets come in that can change completely.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's hard to really review a CCG because things just change so much.
And that's why I focus a bit more on the distribution model, because that's really the thing that usually remains solid.
For the Transformers trading card game, here's our crits and our misses. Beginning in crits mode, collecting and battling with iconic characters from the Transformers series, it feels like this game really is one of the first ones to get the property right and do it justice.
They have promised to go to all the far corners of the universe, meaning you'll likely see those long-forgotten Transformers that may be your favorite, but maybe didn't appear in the movies.
The ability to flip your character card to a different mode with different stats and abilities feels very much in theme for the property, and it's also a really fun mechanic. The combat mechanic feels unique, and in building your deck, forces you to really critically examine which cards you want for both their abilities and their color properties.
Now let's find the bumps in the road with the misses. Combat does come down to flipping multiple cards off the top of your deck, which can feel a bit luck-based, or in some cases even swingy, which if you flip enough cards, you can sort of one-hit KO multiple bots.
The game does move pretty quickly, I think, because of this, so it could be kind of a double-edged sword depending on what you're looking for in your game.
While we had fun playing the game, we felt Hasbro and Wizards tripped up a little bit with the release, with packs hard to get maybe some of those few cards you need to make a fun team, as well as only making a starter deck for only one team when two would have been fantastic.
How do you not have both of the teams? With the major ones. You gotta have them.
We do find the rules pretty easy to get your head around once you learn them. However, finding them can be a little bit difficult, as they're found through some couple of weird videos with Megatron and Optimus talking, and the actual PDF of explaining the rules is online and not the easiest to find.
Yeah, it's not a complicated game at all, but it would have been nice to have an actual decent rule book
in the starter deck.
That'd help. Like we said previously in the video, this is just the very beginning of the launch of the Transformers card game, and with these CCGs, it's always interesting to see where they're going to go, what's going to change. So this isn't really so much of a definitive review, more of our impressions of the early year one of the game, I would say, or wave one, as they actually officially call it. And yeah, we'll see. I'm definitely interested to find out how it's received by the mainstream public, and if they actually continue to make the game and prolong this for as long as Magic or some of the other Hasbro games have actually been kept alive in the board game industry.
Yeah, overall as the game, we think it does do Transformers justice. The transforming actually is fun and interesting. There are teams and mechanics that allow to make for some really interesting builds, and some of those iconic characters that maybe you thought were lost in time are back to give you those fun, enjoyable moments.
Yeah, I would definitely say if you're interested, if you like CCGs and you like Transformers, you might as well pick up a starter set and see how you feel about the game and if you want to keep going. If you're someone who's wary about CCGs and you aren't really into deck building and trading, this isn't going to change your mind on that front. I mean, it definitely sticks to the cores of that genre, but like if you're into it, I think you're going to have a good time, especially if you're a Transformers fan, for sure. Let us know in the comments if you've played it, if you have any cool deck builds, any preferred cards, any combos that you think are broken, or...
I'd love to hear, because as I said, I've only just started. I haven't really seen too many other deck lists, so you can let me know how I'm totally not using a certain character right.
Yeah, let us all know down there. We'd love to hear about it, or if you have a suggestion for a future review or just a question you'd like to ask, anything like that, please talk to us. Until we see you again, my friends, I'm Jonathan.
I'm Will Prime.
And this was Roll for Crit.
Don't forget to click that like button and, of course, subscribe for even more excellent videos.
I subscribed and now I'm rich.